Doing? I gotta find. Here we go. Live. Gosh darn it, that's not what I wanted. Waiting for a few of you guys to join while I'm getting the chat going here. What is up in your worlds? What are we doing? What are we doing on a Monday? Happy, what is it, President's Day? President's Day. Do we really need a holiday for that? I mean, we'll get this going. Don't worry. Home. Your videos. I am not seeing it. Working on an iPad over here, folks. Not going well. So, home. Sorry about this. We're getting people. People are coming to the stream. I think that's it. That looks like it. Top message. What is going on? 22 people here already? Wow. Let's do this. Okay. Live chat. Is my live chat going? I'm going to assume it's going. How is everybody doing? Let's get into this. All right. Now that we've got the shenanigans taken care of, let's cover some news. So I will do my normal intro and then we'll get into it and we'll keep going. Got 3 stories today. We've got the I'm going to tear apart the Donald Trump, the civil fraud trial. We had the verdict come down from the judge Friday. It is just mind-blowingly stupid. We're going to cover that. We've got we've got shenanigans here in Seattle and we don't have enough cops. We've got some crazy stuff going on. And then down in Texas, down on the border, we've got Governor Greg Abbott. He is building basically a military fort on the water, on the river, to basically combat this invasion that's going on the southern border. Those are the topics we're covering today. Let's get rolling here. Let's do our intro on the first one. So, got to get my head together here. Figure this one out. Nah, I just need to get a couple of sentences together. So the kangaroo courts in New York City, they have handed down a $350 million judgment against Donald Trump in a civil fraud trial. We're going to tear this bad boy apart. I'm a real estate appraiser. I spent the last 30 years of my career valuating properties, which is at the heart of this Donald Trump lawsuit. I'm going to tear it apart. We're going to play some video. This whole thing is it's kangaroo court time. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right, so let's watch. Let's do a little bit of video. What do you say? Just a scooch of video. Now, I was watching this on Tim Pool this morning, and he played the same. I don't know if it's the same video, but it's also the dude from Shark Tank, and he broke it down pretty well. I believe he is a former real estate developer, Mr. Wonderful. I've watched Kevin O'Leary, I believe it is. I've watched a fair amount of Shark Tank, but it always seems kind of contrived to me. Like, I'm going to buy your business. Oh, your business failed because you didn't run it right. You know, just some weird shenanigans going on there. But what you've got going on with the Donald Trump case is literally, and I think what Kevin O'Leary hammers on and what I'm going to hammer on is that what is at the heart of this case is something that is happening right now all over the world. It is just how business is done in real estate development. It's just how it's done. In any industry where you have to state how much your assets are worth, do you go to the high end or do you go to the low end? You're looking for a credit card. How much is your house worth? Well, are you going to go low? No, you're not. Let's jump on into it. Here we go.
It was odd.
Let me get this squared away.
Well, let's leave out Trump for a minute and let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere.
About that.
So if you're a developer and you've got
the CNN, she doesn't know anything.
Well, let's leave out Trump for a minute and let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere. So if you're a developer and you've got a building on a block anywhere in America and it's worth, let's say, $500 million, and you want to build a building right beside it, you go to the bank and say, this building is worth $500 million. I'd like to borrow a construction finance loan against this asset, and I want you to tell me it's worth $500 million too. And the bank negotiates with you and says, well, no, we think it's worth $400 million, and you fight it out. You're always...
You see how he said the bank negotiates with you? It's not like Trump said Mar-a-Lago is worth $1.5 billion and the lender lent him that money based on that. That is not what ever happened. In fact, with the Trump case, there is no victim. He never defaulted on any loans. This is just information he provided to get loans. And then banks have they have the responsibility to their shareholders and to their depositors to make good financial decisions. So everybody that comes at you as a bank they're gonna estimate their values as high because that's gonna get knocked down.
He's trying to show your assets in the brightest light with the sunshine you can possibly determine for them. You want them to be worth the very most because you're only going to get a 40 or 50% loan to value, as it's called. Then you borrow that money. In the case of a $500 million asset, maybe you get $250 million, and you build a new building with a construction finance loan. And so that's what this case is all about. And by the way, forget about...
And it wasn't necessarily just about construction. It was about the takeout too. So you go to a bank, you get a construction loan, you build that property. Now you've got a permanent structure. You've got a building kicking off income on the land. That's all one package, right? So now you go out and get a permanent loan. It's called a permanent loan. It's just normal financing for a recently constructed building. It's no longer based on, well, what will it be worth once it's finished? Now it's finished, boom, up and running. So any type of property, this is the process. You take your financials into a bank, you fill out an application, and you got to state your values. And then the bank has a responsibility to make the correct decision based on the information you provide to them, whether or not you're, blowing smoke up their skirt or not. And so many times in my career, I've been brought in, hey, doing a cross-collateral loan, Sean, and this guy seems to think his house is worth $750,000. We think it's worth $600,000. We're doing a cross-collateral loan on his home. This is important. Don't screw this up. Tell us what it's really worth, because that's what they're going to make their decision on. The banks aren't stupid. They don't have stupid people working there. Well, you've got people that have to follow financial systems. And part of that is there enough equity to pay back this loan in case this borrower defaulted? In Trump's case, he didn't default on any loans. There are no victims here. It's not like the Great Recession where person after person after person after person defaulted and they went back to the bank. Now the bank stuck with them after the banks gave them loans that they shouldn't have gotten. So
Trump, every single real estate developer everywhere on earth does this. They always talk about their asset being worth a lot, and the bank says no. And that's just the way it is. So in this case, what I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not pro or con, or I don't care about the politics, who lost money? Nobody. The bank got paid back the construction finance loan, and a new building was built. And if you're going to sue this case and win, you got to sue every real estate developer everywhere. This is all they do.
That is so true. This is the construction business. This is real estate development This is any asset-based business. Well, how much are you worth? We'll give you a loan. Send us over your financials. Here's my financials. They took a look at them. Hey, back them up with something. Get that goofball Sean out there and tell us how much this asset is worth. Okay. You bring it in. It's not like that Trump applied for loans and got money just, handed to him on a silver platter. And that was the fraud. There's no fraud here. This is just business. It's wild. But in New York City, Letitia James, she's got a hard on for Trump. There's no other simpler way to put it. She's got a huge hard on. And this case will never, on appeal, this is going nowhere.
This is what they do all day long, every day. So I don't think this thing will ever survive appeal, regardless of what the fine is. This doesn't even make sense. Now, look, I know Trump's got a lot of problems in other indictments and everything else, but this, if you're a real estate developer, you're watching this, you're saying, what is this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, most people who are in this world are not real estate developers, and they necessarily don't know that this is the way maybe things are done, even if it might be violative of the law. But the question about who loses money, and I've heard this argument, and he's raised this argument, and others have raised this argument, that who's the real victim here? How about the fact that you can get a tax benefit for having overvalued or having a different value that's actually normal? Doesn't that deprive the state of revenue? Is that enough, do you think? I know you're laughing,
you better
but this
ready
is
to...
rich people problems are very different than my world. Go ahead.
I mean, I get it. I totally get it.
So the issue there is that tax values are based on what the assessors come up with. An assessor goes out for the county and assesses the value of that property. So what it's based on for tax purposes, the benefit there, that is up to an entity of the government to make sure that that's accurate. They don't tax based on what Trump tells them the properties are worth, period. So you've got a real disconnect there as well.
I get it, and you're making a valid point. But it's humorous in the sense that you have to sue every single real estate developer here in Miami, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Detroit, in Dallas. This is what they do every day. This is what the real estate game is all about. It's getting construction financing against stabilized assets. When a building is fully leased out and everybody's renting it and you've got offices or you've got apartments in it, it's called a stable asset. And you value it, and you go to the bank and say, this asset is worth $500 million, and I want to borrow $250 million against it. And the bank always negotiates with you. Everybody understands how this works, and that's why I think it's going to be very, very hard to make this stick in reality later. This is not, of all the things that Trump's being accused of and being litigated for and indicted for, this is not his problem. This is not his problem. He's got much worse problems than this. This is, for real estate developers, this is a joke.
This is a joke. This was a kangaroo court setting. You had a judge who was like, he's guilty. He's guilty. Even before the trial started. I mean, ahead of time. He basically came right out and said, he's guilty. He's guilty of all this. And you're left with, okay, so then he's guilty of what? And who is the victim here? What was the angle of the crime? What happened here? Oh yeah, he overstated some assets on his financials that the bank then had the chance to look at, review, and then lend on. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. It's nutty.
To me to hear this perspective, because you don't often hear it from that particular angle. And of course, you wonder if everyone's doing it and one would have to sue everybody. Does that mean that they got to have a bigger prosecutor's office, or that the laws have to change to make it? I mean, you cannot do, like, what is the solution here? You get punished for it, or you shouldn't do it, or you know what? It should be okay.
It is okay.
Question, is everybody doing it?
It's okay.
In real estate?
And you know why it's okay? Because the system has internal checks and balances. The lenders who lend based on overinflated financials without doing their homework, they don't stay in business. They go out of business. The ones that do their homework, like Legacy Group Lending here in Bellevue that I've worked with for years, since the 90s. They're still in business. A lot of fly-by-night guys have come and gone. They used my appraisals to back up their loans because they made sense. Somebody defaults, they've got enough assets to make it go, and their investors don't have to take a hit.
Yes, everybody's doing it, not only domestically, all around the world. This is how it works, okay?
That's how it works.
You don't want to be Donald Trump and get embroiled in what looks like, I mean, it looks to me in this presidential race, and I'm not in favor of this, that the courts are being used to try and sway voters on both sides of the equation. I don't understand why we're trying to, impeach Biden. What a waste of time. And his son and all this stuff and all of this litigation on Trump hasn't moved the needle for either of these candidates. People don't care about this noise anymore, and it's obvious when you look at these poll results. And so why keep doing it? I mean, let the voters vote and decide on the merits of both. I'd rather hear policy. I'd rather not hear about Trump's real estate woes in New York. I'd like to hear his tax plan. I want to hear about security at the border. I'd like to hear foreign policy from both of these candidates so I can make a decision as a voter on which of these people should be president. And the rest of this stuff is just horrific noise. When in America do we sue?
Horrific noise. It's so true. It's just like,
Sitting presidents and former presidents. We've never done this before. This is really bad for the American brand. This is it feels like Venezuela to me or something. This is nuts. We're so close to the election. We're months away. Let's talk policy. Give me some meat on the bone. This stuff's getting too crazy.
Oh, bless your heart, Mr. Wonderful. You want to know the policy in politics. What a Washington, D.C. that would be. That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Nice to see you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing your perspective because, I lean into it, Mr. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
What? Where was that going? What? You lean into what? You got what going on? Yeah. So let's just read the article here. What do you say? Some of this stuff is just, I think this was meant to basically ramrod Trump. This is one of many cases meant to get him off his footing. And I've got too much going on. No can do, can't run for president. I think it just does the opposite and fuels the fire. He gets more ramped up every single case he has. It's like every time he gets indicted, he goes up in the polls. It's having the opposite impact that I think people want it to have. And if you've ever been in business, you've owned a business, or if you've ever been through a trial, you've sat as a professional witness, you understand that Letitia James, the person bringing the case from New York City, the attorney general from New York City, she is not a sharp tool in the shed. She's the real blunt one that's been used for 3 seasons, put away wet. You know what I mean? It's rusting a little bit. She is not sharp. And this is the best that they can do to have a case come against Trump and try and get him off of his footing. I mean, it's wild that this is where we sit. Former President Donald Trump and his companies must pay $354.8 million for fraudulent business practices that everybody does every single day. All right. Okay. Here's something else. So now you have gotten to a point where, kill the sound. Now you've gotten to a point where you have proven that Trump exaggerates. Well done. I mean, well done. So, I mean, did we need a full court case to figure that one out? No, I don't think so. But this of all things is what they're bringing against Trump. And you're just kind of, if you're in real estate, finance, or anything, you're just kind of left looking at this one going, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense at all, because it's just complete crap. It's a non-case. It's a non-thing. It's just not something. But instead, we've got a verdict of $354.8 million. Boy, you think that might get reversed on appeal? You think? Nutty. Engoron's decision follows an 11-week civil trial in New York where Donald Trump and 3 of his adult children testified. New York Attorney General Letitia James, she is just out for Trump, bottom line. She ran a campaign based on, I'm going to get him, I'm going to get him. She thinks she's got him. She has done nothing. 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 And this bad boy is going to get appealed. She sued Trump and his children in September 2022 for issuing fraudulent financial statements, including over 200 false and misleading asset values between 2011 and 2021 to get better business deals. Really? Because that's not really how it works. If you have greater loan to value, you're not going to get, you know what I mean? You're not going to get these super sweet deals. You're just going to either get a deal or not get a deal. And it's up to the bank to figure out what the borrower's assets are. Because let's break it down. You want to go get a credit card. They're asking you about your assets, maybe your house. What are you going to do? Are you going to go high on your house? Are you going to overestimate the value of your home? Yes. And the value of your car, are you going to go low on that? What's your car worth? Any of your assets. What's your any of those? Are you going to go low on those? No, because the bank's going to take a whack at those because you start off high and you hope that the bank gives you whatever the bank gives you. And it's their responsibility to make a lending decision. You're not creating fraud. It's up to them to make the decision. And they do. And they did on Trump's deals. And you know what they said? They said, these are pretty good deals. We're going to lend on them. And then you know what Trump did? He went out, he built the property, and he paid off the loans. There wasn't one single default here. Not one. So where's the fraud? You over-exaggerated on your application? I mean, James described the ruling as a tremendous victory for this state, this nation, and for everyone who believes that we all must play by the same rules, even former presidents. She is a moron. Straight up. She's a moron. She came into the game, in this current run saying, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. Well, she's got her gotcha moment. The judge has got his gotcha moment. It doesn't go anywhere. This gets flipped on appeal. When powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of honest and hardworking people. See, there's her pull, James said in a statement. Every day, Americans cannot lie to a bank to get a mortgage to buy a home. No, that's why the bank does their own due diligence, you moron. They don't. That's why you can't just go into a bank like we used to have liar's loans, right? For drug dealers. Started in the 80s. Hey, how much money do you make? I make $100 million a year. Okay. Can you prove us a little bit of those assets? Here's my bank statement. Got 50 million on it. All right. And you're looking for a loan of 600,000 to buy a home? Yes, I am. My CPA says that I need the deduction. Okay, we'll give you that loan. Banks used to do that. Those were called liar loans. The basic essence of that is what caused the Great Recession in 2008. So we don't do those anymore. And in commercial, it's never been done. If you want to give somebody a sweetheart deal, then you have to respond to your investors, to your shareholders on the other end when that sweetheart deal goes sideways and the bank is left with a big loss because numbnuts boy who, ran the construction project, he ran off with his 22-year-old girlfriend to Tahiti with the loan proceeds or some damn thing like that, right? I mean, that's just how those things go. So everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank to get a mortgage to buy a home. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. Really? Would they really? Really? Would they? Because I don't remember seeing a ton of people going to jail during the Great Recession, and guaranteed they all lied on their loan applications. That's why it was called a liar's loan. I mean, these are pretty basic concepts. And yet you've got enough people out there who don't understand, nor do they care. They just want to hear Trump is bad, the orange man bad, Trump is bad. And, I don't do a ton of stuff on the big politics. But this is one, because of the lending side of it, I really wanted to cover because it's so ridiculous. It's so absurd. Now, Trump, trying to pay off Stormy Daniels, the former porn star, with a little bit of campaign hush money. Is there some liability in there? Probably. We'll let that work out, right? But so many of these other things, they are literally just, they're trying to get Trump out of there. They're trying to rock his boat. And it doesn't seem to be going well because Trump thrives on this stuff, right? It's like, all right, so you figured out he over-exaggerates on his loan apps. He over-exaggerates in general. I mean, have you heard him speak? Have you heard him talk? I know everybody. I knew everybody. The guy just does that, time and time and time again, and it's worked for him, right? He got elected once. Some would say twice. Zangaron, the judge, he had already ruled that Trump and his associates, including his adult sons, wildly overvalued the former president's net worth and his real estate assets to make deals and to get big loans. Overvaluing your assets is not a crime. That is just something that happens every single day. And we don't need to harp on that. That's just how it goes. So are you going to reform the whole thing? All right, all you big business guys, you guys have to tell the truth, because there's no system in place. When you guys tell us that you're worth, $600 billion, we believe it and just go, okay, here's your loan. That's not what happens. That's not what happens. The judge needed to decide whether the Trumps were liable, and if so, what, if any, penalties should be imposed. Based on Friday's decision, former President Trump and his co-defendants will likely owe $463.9 million based on their initial fine and the prejudgment interest imposed by the court, according to a representative for the New York Attorney General, which will get overturned on appeal because this is a joke. Trump himself will likely owe $453 million between his $354 and $98 million in interest. I'm not even listening because it's not relevant. It's not going anywhere. The amount of interest owed by the defendants is set to increase every day they did not pay the fines. Now, where Tim Pool went kind of down the crazy train road was where he talked about Trump defaulting on this stuff. Trump isn't going to default. He's not going to default on this. He's just not. He's going to work out a way to get his way through, and that's what guys like Trump do. They figure it out. His kids not being able to run the companies for a couple of years, nobody cares. It's not relevant. It's simply not. Trump not being able to. These are not businesses where you've got the owner at the front desk welcoming everybody in. Hey, come do business with us. It's not a bacon wrap taco stand where, your entrepreneur is both your PR, the guy handing out the food, marketing, payroll, all that. Trump has literally just got his name on so many of these businesses and not a ton more. Speaking at a Mar-a-Lago club, Trump called the decision against him and the Trump organization a sad day for the country. To me, I saw it as, that's just another day in the country where you got somebody who just really doesn't want to see Trump as president. And that's what we're talking about, right? And this is how you get from point A to point B. Think of the amount of resources that have been used in New York City, a city that is just absolutely drowning in illegal immigrants running through their city. How many millions of dollars in resources have been dedicated to this ridiculous lawsuit? We don't want to talk about that. That's far too reasonable. You've got shenanigans all day long in New York City. That's what you got. And this court case was an absolute shenanigan. And the reason I keep harping on this court case is because the basics of it just don't make any sense. It's just not reality. Instead, this is the best that Letitia James could do because she's a moron and she wanted to tag him with something. And she figured, wow, this is going to get some really good PR. We're really going to show him who's boss. And she's a sad sack for bringing this to fruition. It's a sad day, in my opinion, for the country. A New York State judge just ruled, and he's crooked as you can get. This is Trump again. And a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount. This is a very dishonest man. That's the Trump speak. All right. I don't know if he's a dishonest man, but he is a man who doesn't want to see Trump as president. I get that. He made that very clear up front. In New York, a lot of folks in New York City don't want to see Trump. Trump doesn't play by the rules. That's why Wall Street doesn't back Trump, right? He doesn't play by the rules. Oh, you don't like that? Sue me. He's a street brawler. That's what he is. And he's done very well. Judge Engeron, he laid open the Trumps and their co-defendants for their complete lack of contrition and remorse. Well, you typically have remorse when you've done something wrong. And all right, so they inflated their values. Is that something a real estate developer is typically going to have remorse for? No, they're just going to say, what do you mean? This is what we do. And I don't think there is any, if you want to go down the moral obligation to accurately reflect your property values, you are probably not going to stay in business very long, period. You're just not. That's not how the game is played. And it borders on pathological, Trump's lack of contrition and remorse. Okay, all righty, all right, Mr. Judge, whatever. They're accused only of inflating asset values to make more money. The documents prove this over and over again. This is a sin, not a mortal sin. Defendants did not commit murder or arson. They did not rob a bank at gunpoint. Donald Trump is not Bernie Madoff, yet defendants are incapable of admitting the error of their ways. Instead, they adopt a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil posture that the evidence belies, Engeron wrote. The ruling went on to say that the frauds found here leapt off the page and shocked the conscious. No, they don't. For anybody in business, you're like, okay, where's the crime? What's the crime? What crime are you speaking of? Because what you just described to me is every single real estate developer sitting at his desk, filling out that loan app. Maybe it's on his computer now. Are you going to go high? Yeah. Are you going to underestimate your assets? No. Because then you won't get the loan. And it's up to the bank to figure it out. Hey, does this guy actually have this value in this property? And if he doesn't, well, then they say no to the loan. That's the part that I think America doesn't get, that the United States doesn't get, that the world doesn't get on this particular deal. The banks have the ability to say no. Just say no. Just say no. So that is an option. And yet people are led to believe by this court case that because Trump, threw out those numbers, Mar-a-Lago, his compound there in Florida, is a perfect example of that. The assessor had the value of his property at $18 million, which was laughable. I mean, incredibly laughable. Some of that has to do with you just don't have a lot of comparable sales for a property like that, of that nature. In reality, I've kind of run the numbers. I am not a commercial appraiser, but you start looking at what other properties have sold in, say, Florida and say the United States, because to appraise a property like Mar-a-Lago, you'd have to go throughout the entire United States and possibly world. And then the further you get away from that location, the less, similar they become, and you got to make all kinds of adjustments. I think that property is probably worth $500 million. I think it's worth $500 million. Trump said it was worth $1.5 billion. Maybe to the right buyer it is. Maybe Trump's right. You don't know. The only way to know that is to put that property on the market and see what the market says. It's certainly worth more than what the assessor had on the books for it. So that was one of the properties where they indicated that Trump wildly over-exaggerated the value and his net worth. He was right. He was probably way closer to the value than the assessor was, because we know for a fact that comparable sales in the area, they support way more than 18 million. That would have been a crime, saying that the market value was 18 million. It's just so far off. It didn't balance with reality. Of Donald Trump's testimony, Engeron wrote that he rarely responded to the questions asked, and he frequently interjected long, irrelevant speeches on issues far beyond the scope of the trial. All right. I mean, have you ever listened to one of his speeches? Is this something new? Is this shocking? What do you got for me? Tell me something new. Tell me something I don't already know. Because otherwise you're just like, okay. And then what was the crime committed in the case? He over-exaggerated his valuations. Okay, right. Yeah. Did he not wear his seatbelt one time in the car? Did he not put his seatbelt on? Did he crosswalk? Did he jaywalk one time where the light wasn't yellow or when it wasn't white, on the thing? Are we going to get into that? His refusal to answer the questions directly, or in some cases at all, severely compromised his credibility, he continued. Did it? I mean, I watched a lot of the transcripts coming out of that case. I didn't seem to think so. He does what a lot of guys do on the stand. Yeah, they're gonna get that district attorney off, their attorney general off of their case. And this case to me was determined at the beginning. I mean, the judge already determined it. He basically came right out and said, he's guilty. He's guilty. Let's hammer him. Engoron vacated his September order, canceling the defendant's business certificates, instead ordering an independent monitor to oversee the Trump Organization for at least 3 years. For what? What are they going to see? What are they going to do? That's an incredible amount, waste of resources. It's ridiculous. He also ordered an independent director of compliance be installed at the company. That's going to do absolutely zero. Zero. Trump's sons, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, were both found liable in the case and were each ordered to pay $4 million. Both sons are also banned from serving as officers or directors of New York companies for 2 years. So they rotate out a couple of executives. Yo, John, Eric and John Jr., they can't, we got to take them off the figurehead for right now. Can you rotate in? Yeah, no problem. I got your back. Boom, it's done. That in big business setting, that's what they do. So they're banned. And the American public, the world, looks at it and goes, oh my God, who's going to run those businesses? What are they going to do? I mean, they've got contingency plans for this stuff before the case is even done. And it's already implemented. But, you're going to wait for appeal on this and see where it goes. Judge Engoron took direct aim at several of Trump's core defenses, including their claim that real estate appraisal is imprecise and subjective. I've been a real estate appraiser for 30-something years. Real estate appraisal is imprecise and subjective, period, because it's based on the opinion of the appraiser. You take 10 different appraisals on a difficult property, you're going to have 10 different values. Why is that? Because it's imprecise and it's subjective, period. It's my opinion. This is my opinion on what this value is, the property that is worth, based on this data. And then I sign my report and I sign all my certifications. You either take that, use it as toilet paper if you like, or don't use it. But don't tell me that, this is a precise, in appraisal, we have to come up with an actual number, a hard number. But in reality, it's something wildly different, right? Because how many times do you see in real estate the actual number, just some just, wow, $1 million even. It's always some wonky number, right? Because you're negotiating on this, that, get a credit for this, all of that. And the appraisal doesn't have the ability to have that kind of accuracy. Appraisals just don't. But banks rely upon them because, in my opinion, I've been looking at this stuff for 30 years. They're going to trust me over the developer who is known to inflate the values so that he can get a loan. It's just what we do. When two appraisals rely on starkly different assumptions, that is not evidence of a difference of opinion. That is evidence of deceit. No, that is incorrect too. This judge is just wrong. You might have one appraiser who doesn't understand the assignment, or he's not experienced enough to understand what the comparable sales are that truly reflect the value. You might have somebody who's looking to get something different out of it, and that is deceit. But when you have two appraisals that rely on starkly different assumptions, you can have that situation because somebody sees it differently, and that is their opinion. This is where the judge doesn't understand appraising either. He doesn't understand business. He doesn't understand valuation. Most judges don't understand a lot other than they think that their, what is probably 6-7 inches bigger than it really is. So there's that. So Engoron also undercut a common refrain from defendants that their accountants were responsible for maintaining above-board business practices. At the end of the day, you're responsible for anything you sign as far as a loan app that goes to a lender, period. Yeah, in big business, you've got layers of accountants that are responsible. Okay, but, they're on your payroll. So you're responsible for them. In a section of his ruling titled Blame the Accountants, Engoron wrote that there is overwhelming evidence that the buck for being truthful in the supporting data valuation stopped with the Trump organization, not the accountants. But again, that is business. Everybody knows that. I mean, if you get sucked into that, then that's your fault. That's on you. You're a moron. Throughout the lengthy trial, Trump mocked the attorney general and her legal team and has ridiculed Engoron because she is worthy of mockery. And he is a judge that has just been so honed in on getting Trump, Orange Man, bad. And that's, he took whatever he had and just slammed it to the wall and made it work. Guilty. He's guilty. 354 million. The former president repeatedly insisted without evidence that he's the victim of a Democrat conspiracy to destroy his business and to foil his reelection campaign. Without evidence, how many of these cases do we need before somebody realizes, oh, hey now, yeah, we're not doing this to other former presidents, are we? No. Huh, weird. I mean, Biden, let's go Brandon, he came right out and said, we will not allow him to be president. By any means necessary, we will not allow him to be president. We will do whatever it takes to not allow him to be president. If that doesn't tell you what you need to know right there, I mean, you can say what you want about this stuff, but this was just a terrible case from the get-go. Eric Trump reacted to the ruling and told ABC News the judgment against him and his family is a total joke. You got to take oftentimes what people are saying when they get an indictment against them or a ruling against them, I guess in this case. But in this one, I happen to agree. It is a joke. Adding it's insane. And he said the ruling shows the court and the attorney generals, in his opinion, are living in an alternate universe. 100% agree. Maybe it's not an alternate universe. It's just that they hate Orange Man bad so badly. They've got Trump derangement syndrome that it's literally whatever we got to do to rock this guy off of his footing, that's what we're going to do. And that's, I think, what you're looking at. Trump's legal team has vowed to appeal the ruling, not shocking. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. This is not about Donald Trump. If this decision stands, it will serve as a signal to every single American that New York is no longer open for business, said Trump's legal spokesperson, Alina Habba. She's a good attorney. Yeah, she is not difficult to look at either. Way to go, Alina. Trump always has that type of folk people in his in his group of people, shall we say. But I think what was another thing that really struck me was the fact that, was it the New York mayor? No, it was the governor, Hochul, governor of New York, said, wait a minute, guys. Yeah, we got this bad judgment against Trump, but don't worry, business as usual here in the rest of New York. You've literally got Hochul coming out and stating, don't worry, the rest of you guys are fine. You're fine. You're fine. There's going to be no issues with, you guys doing business. We just wanted Trump. It's basically what she came out and said. I mean, the whole thing is just so one-sided. The Trump Organization released a statement calling the ruling a gross miscarriage of justice. The Attorney General is permitted to retroactively insert herself into private commercial transactions. Remember, these are all for loans that have been paid off. They're not current loans on the books. They're not they're not going to default down the road. So what are we really talking about here? Orange Man bad. Let's get him. That's what we're doing. Between sophisticated parties, no business transaction entered into in the state of New York will be beyond the Attorney General's purview. That is frightening. That is frightening. The statement said in part, every member of the New York business community, no matter the industry, should be gravely concerned with this gross overreach and brazen attempt by the Attorney General to exert limitless power where no private or public harm has been established. That's why I think she's just such a knucklehead, because this is made up shenanigans is what you've got here. If this is the best that you can do, I mean, you are really, really reaching. This is a stretch at absolute best. It's a stretch because, there's no victim. There's no crime here. There's no crime. You might say that the over-exaggeration is a crime, But it's like, okay, what did that crime result in? Well, nothing. Everybody got paid off and everybody made money. Okay, well, I guess the crime was capitalism then. So there's that. All right. Okay. Yeah. Capitalism bad. Let's go down that road. Yeah. Defund the police should work out just fine, right? Oh man, I mean, it's great. I don't think there's anything left in here. All right. So we watched the Shark Tank. Here's another one. It could get shut down. Female trucker is joining a boycott to protest Trump verdict. So truckers for Trump are not going to deliver goods into New York City. Oof, that one. Whether this will come out about, I don't know. Trump supporting truckers plan to boycott New York City over $355 million fraud case. One claims it could shut the city down by making basic goods unaffordable. It's unclear how widespread the protest is or what impact it could have. I thought that was a fun one. Will that really happen? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, it might have some issues with New York City as far as their contracts moving forward. I don't really see that as a big thing, but it was funny, truckers for Trump. It's like, okay, all right, so you guys aren't going to take stuff to New York City. I'll see it when I believe it, I guess is the way I was going to go with that one. All right. But this other, the judgment against Trump, like, what? All right. That one is for sure to be continued, because on appeal, I don't think this stands up. You've got to have that one judge who just hates Orange Man bad that badly to get to that kind of decision. So let's go, Brandon, right? All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being this far into the episode. We're releasing content every day, so make sure you have the notification bell, that little notification bell. Hit that, hit the like button for this video, and I'll catch up with you in the next segment. Bye for now. For those of you on the live stream, let's see what you guys are talking about. What do you guys have going on? There's not much coverage about the truckers. You know what? There's either a ton of coverage about the truckers or there's no coverage. It doesn't have, much in between. They wield a lot more power than people think they do, from Chief Keef. Yeah, they do, because they bring us our stuff. I was reading something where somebody was saying, hey, your food doesn't come from that corner store. It's not grown there. Somebody's got to bring it into you. Everything's a corner store in New York City. The boycott will hurt the lot lizard. Ordinary man. You're speaking the truth there. The lot lizards. You guys ever watch any lot lizard videos? Frightening stuff. If you don't know what a lot lizard is, it's the young ladies who keep the truckers happy at truck stops. And by happy, I do mean, well, happy. Yeah, the trucker story broke late last night. Yeah, it did. I've seen some coverage of it this morning. We'll see where that goes. I would say there's not a lot there, but lot lizards can survive anything. Look at what happened in Canada. That is another really good example. Yeah, that whole thing with Canada and the Canadian government just coming in and scooping out their money, that was insane, wasn't it? One of my neighbors is a middle-aged lot lizard. All right, well, there you go. There you go, Scorch. All right, let's get back to our regularly scheduled program here. And I'm going to do this story here. We got a couple of angles here. We got Seattle. We got Seattle with just normal silliness and ridiculousness, just like Portland, just like most of California, DC, New York City, Chicago. Anywhere you got a blue governor or a blue mayor or blue people voting, just not going all that well. So in Seattle, it's a viable career option to be a thief. That's what a local business owner in Seattle is saying. What is the deal? We've got more break-ins continuing. Tristan, cut, and let's redo that. Some business owners in Seattle are saying it's a viable career option to be a thief. Well, after your 14th break-in on your business, yeah, you might say that too. Let's get into it. What's going on in Seattle? Here we go. All right, so this is from Blaze Media. Actually, you know what? I got to redo that. Sorry. Here we go. Got to go with the full screen. That's the full screen right there, by the way. In Seattle, it's a viable career option to be a thief. This is coming from Seattle business owners who have been broken into repeatedly. And they're basically saying, hey, our government, our officials are doing nothing. What can be done? Let's get into it. Here we go. All right. That one will work. So now we go to the split side screen. So we got a group of business owners. They are none too pleased. And one of them, actually, we're going to watch this video. Let's get into this video. It's a good little video. Como, here local. Let's kill the sound. That off. Let's go big. Go big or go home. Go little. Let's do.
Joins us from Ballard Avenue. Paul, you spoke to that business owner, but we know he's not alone.
Oh, he's not. There's a jewelry store just down the road that's been broken into even more times. I've been reporting on property crime on this road a couple of years now. Other businesses have been broken into. They feel like a broken record at this point. Their message to city leaders is always the same: pay attention and do something.
I can't keep taking the hits like this.
Matt Humphrey, owner of Ballard's Steel Barber and Spa, says it's beyond exhausting fixing up yet another window from another crime caught on camera.
And literally within minutes they brought their own trash bag and were filling it with beauty products and jackets, which is what we sell to try to pay the rent and pay our tax base here in Seattle.
4 break-ins in 2 years. He says 4 too many.
I've been waiting out failed policy for 3 years.
I've asked you this over and over again. Are you going to stay doing business in Seattle?
Paul, I have no choice. I'm so vested here. It's either that or go bankrupt.
No, I mean, these two are my favorite cases.
Some business owners on this.
You might remember this young lady. She was literally sleeping in her store. It's kind of a jewelry collectible store. She was sleeping in her store with her really big dog. And I think we'll see that in a second here. And an intruder broke in and she scared him off. We did a podcast about this. So this young lady is still in business, number one, and she's still going for it, but she's still, being broken into.
Are a fired up bunch. They need this to work for the city to pay attention.
This is like my heart and soul. This is my art, and I feel really strongly about defending it.
Down the road at Begin, jewelry store owner M.K. Byrne has been broken into 7 times in 2.5 years. Seen here in 2022, she camped up in her business and chased off a burglar. The most recent attempt was in October.
From what I understand, it takes a really long time to prosecute anyone who's
Young ladies out there, would you be doing that? Dudes out there, would you be doing that? Yeah, I mean, people breaking into your store, they got a lot less
been caught breaking and entering. It's very rare they are even caught.
And there's another issue. This week, as property crime numbers were reportedly down in the city, Seattle Police Chief Adrian Diaz also acknowledged that the data may be wrong.
It's not always an accurate reflection of our overall crime.
Matt is not surprised.
Make this your #1 priority. I mean, there's a lot going on in the city, but small businesses are the backbone of your community, they're backbone of your tax base. Help us fix this now.
Matt also told me that he sees a direct correlation.
Okay, so.
Joins us from Ballard Avenue. Paul, you spoke to that business owner, but we know he's not alone.
All right, so what I want you to take away from that, and we're gonna talk about that in more depth, but Chief Diaz, you're gonna see stats coming out that crime is dropping. Well, crime is dropping because people are not reporting it. People are so burned out after having escalated crime since 2019 that they're just no longer reporting criminal activity. Stores aren't reporting break-ins. You know, talked with officer now retired, and the two things in life that people will report as far as criminal activity: gunshots, because that is so shocking. What happened? That was a gun going off? No, because you could die, right? And their cars being stolen. because everybody needs their car. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, it's okay, somebody stole my car. It's all right. Shenanigans happen. It's all right. I'm sure I'll get it back. No, people freak the F out because they need it to get from work. It's an expensive asset. It's part of their life. They can't drive. They're hosed. They know that. And so you've got a couple of levels of criminal activity that I think are roughly accurately portrayed. But like break-ins and retail theft, you're going to see those numbers drop. And those are because people have just literally given up, especially here in Seattle. I don't cover a lot of these stories anymore because I feel like I am a broken record. Like, I got broken into again. What's going to happen this time, George? It's so ridiculous. It's like I always want to say it's like the crazy train, because crazy is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting something different. You're running your business in Ballard, one of the hellholes of Seattle, and you're expecting a different result. These people, the reason you open up a business in Ballard is because you believe it's a good location. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. And then you watch your business just kind of, get broken into. What did the female say? 7 times? At what point do you just say, enough, no mas? And like the guy said, hey, it's either keep the business going and hope that the city officials do something, which I think a hope and a prayer are going to get you absolutely nowhere in this case. And I have a lot of opinions on that. I mean, these folks open up their businesses thinking the best, right? Well, the reality faces you that this is not the best location. Ballard is not a great location right now. Ballard has an incredible amount of crime going on. And we're going to talk about some of that in this podcast. I think there is an entire generation out there right now that no longer are capable of working. They have become so ingrained in this criminal activity behavior that they, unless you incarcerate that entire generation, those kids out there doing all this crazy stuff and the people that are showing them how to do this, unless you take that segment out of society. And if you do take that segment out of society by arresting them and incarcerating them, it's going to appear to be wildly racist. That's why we don't do it. We don't do it because of, the whole thing that we got here in the first place was, all right, all these, actions by police appear to be racist. They seem to be arresting the same groups of people over and over and over. What's going on? All right, let's make that not a crime and we'll just see how this goes. And that's where we sit. You've taken so many felony crimes and reduced them down to a misdemeanor. Now nobody gives a crap and nobody even reports them because what does it do? All right, we've got accurate crime stats. Now what? My store's been broken into the 14th time. Now what? Business owner Matt Humphrey told Como that his store had been broken into 4 times in the past 2 years and nothing has been done to stop the thefts. It's just happened to me too much. It's like post-traumatic stress. Every time the phone rings in the middle of the night, there's this worry about doing business in Seattle. Absolutely. Absolutely. You worry. If you've got anything of value over in Seattle, you're right to be worried because somebody's going to want to get it because, communism, what's yours is mine. What's mine is not yours. We don't all share equally. That's like my coffee cup. Where is my coffee cup? I don't know. Socialism works for those who don't. Same thing, right? I'm hoping some judge, some politician watching your news show will hear it and say, this has got to stop. That's not the road we're going in, unfortunately. It's not. You've got a whole bunch of people in the legal system, in the judicial system, that are letting people out over and over and over, giving them a new lease on life. Hey, I know you've got 14 outstanding warrants for your arrest, but if we're just going to send you with this piece of paper and your promise to return, and it should all work out, right? Got to start throwing people in jail. You got to convict them and throw them in jail, get them off the streets. Then, and only then, will you start to have some impact. Short of that, because that's all you got. I mean, might want to talk about reimagining and rethinking the judicial system, but let's talk in today's reality. What are you going to do? All you've got is the judicial system that we have right now. This whole, let's just add, relocate assets to something else. Let's invest more in society. Let's do more community investment. It's rethinking, it's reimagining, and it's also, we got to look at the root cause of the problem. That means looking at the root cause, not really doing anything, right? Because when you're looking and you're thinking and you're reimagining, what are you doing? You're just in your head. We're just thinking about all the shenanigans going on. We're not really doing anything. We got nothing really going on. Meanwhile, the bad man, robs the store 18 times. And then we talk about, wow, we got to get at the root problem of this. All right. I'm listening. But I'm not going into that store. It's been robbed 14 times. You know that, right? Humphrey continued, I can't keep taking the hits like this. I've been waiting out failed policy for 3 years. What about all the folks in Oakland? Oakland has just become a ghost town because of soft on crime policies. And why would you run a business there? Take your business elsewhere. The problem is these folks set up and invested, and they're single shops most of the time. They're not a big chain that can kind of come in and out like CVS or Starbucks or Target. And they invest everything. So they're in. They are in. There is no, different location, because then they have to market to a totally different market. And, they lose customers, and they got to rebuild, they got to rebrand, they got to do all that stuff. And, making a move down the block ain't going to do it. Because if you're in Ballard, you're host. You're going to take a whack if you're a store, because you might as well just say, on your storefront, money inside, come rob me. Because of the policies in Seattle, people breaking in, and our drug trade is just such. And then, we've allowed people to live willy-nilly wherever the F they want in their tents. It's the perfect, environment for, let's go rob that store again, because it worked last time. Nobody got busted. Let's do it again. Let's just keep going. And so the business owners are the ones that are left making that decision. Do we shut down? Judgment call, right? Personal judgment call. Down the street, business owner M.K. Byrne, who owns a jewelry store. This is the young lady who had her dog and was literally sleeping in her shop to keep it going in the early days. Who owns a jewelry store, echoed Humphrey's sentiments. Byrne stated that she actually began sleeping in her store in an effort to improve police response time to the repeated burglaries. Okay. All right. You know what? I want to support business owners, and I do, and I want to support a young entrepreneur. But if you are in an environment where you need to be sleeping with your really big dog in your business, that is not a viable long-term business plan. I hate to say it. And I've been a small business owner all of my adult life. I think I bought Reynolds and Klein when I was 23. It's the same year that I think Kiernan was born, my son Kiernan. And which just jogged my memory that today is the 1-year anniversary of the death of my son Brennan. He passed away February 19th, 2023. So I've got in the background, you can see on right in front of the News for Reasonable People, that's a plaque that my wife Monica and ex-wife Monica put up or gave to me, and I posted that on my Instagram account. And we miss Brennan very much, and I can't believe it's a year. But what do you say, right? What do you say? Horrible. Lose a kid. It's terrible. But when you're in a situation where you're a business owner, you've got options, which is get the F out of Dodge. All right. Okay. All right. But no, you're going to keep hoping that somebody does something, on the lines of, I hope there's a judge out there that helps me out. This is Seattle. It's going to take a long time to turn things around, if we can turn things around. So I knew I couldn't take any hit, any loss to my inventory, any interruption to my business, because things were so tight. This is the woman talking about faster response time. I mean, are you going to sleep in your business in Seattle knowing it's been broken into before? Talk about feeling vulnerable. I would have had a big old gun. I mean, just a big old gun. Yeah, come on in. Come on in. Let's see what you got. Come on in. I'm not saying that was the best thing to do as a single female who is not unattractive, sleeping in your business in Ballard, in Seattle. Probably not the best thing to do, but this is my heart and soul. This is my art, and I feel strongly about defending it. I get that. I get that. But for her safety, a life is always worth more than a business. A life is always worth more than branding. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would not recommend that. But I get it. You got to do what you got to do. And man, that gal. The city of Seattle claims that property crime has gone down in recent years, but Seattle Police Chief Adrian Diaz conceded that those numbers were likely erroneous and were probably the result of people reporting fewer crimes due to a sense of futility. Bingo. And that's what you've got going on, right? So until it's clear that criminals are being taken off the streets and incarcerated, expect this to continue. And with the judges we've got and with the criminal system we've got here in Seattle, I mean, it's Freaddle, right? It's Freaddle. It's why people come here. Yeah, and to work at their tech jobs. And then if you work in tech jobs, you ignore all of this because it doesn't really matter to you. Because you go to your little bubble in Amazon and, you know, you've got every amenity known to mankind served up to you on a silver platter because they want your ass in the office. And you know what? You go down to South Lake Union in Seattle. It's beautiful there because they have private security and they don't allow any shenanigans to happen. There's no riffraff. You might have the occasional shooting or murder at a nightclub after hours, but that's because Amazon's been closed down for hours and hours and hours. So, you know, Byrne agreed, noting, from what I understand, it takes a long time to prosecute anyone who's been caught breaking. That's if they get prosecuted at all. We had that whole thing called defund the police. You are still feeling the impacts of that throughout the United States. Nobody wants to be a cop. Can you blame them? That whole fentanyl George Floyd thing, right? Fentanyl Floyd? What was going on there? Rarely they are even caught. What kind of a left in the gap is that it's a viable career option to be a thief? I often say crime does pay. Crime is paying well right now. And the risk return ratio, the risk is minimal to the point where, you know, you've got vernacular in East Bay in San Francisco, bipping. Everybody knows what bipping is now. You didn't know that word a couple of years ago. I didn't anyway. I'd never seen it. I read a lot of news stories, right? Humphrey and Byrne, the two business owners, indicated that they did not intend to leave Seattle, but pleaded with the city's government for help. You know what? You move that store. Let's see, Ballard, you're on, what are you on, about 15th Avenue West. So you move your store 12 miles to the east. The economics are wildly different. Rent here, giving an indication of rent. So my buddy Dan owns a bar. He owns 2 bars. He owns, let's see, up north, it is the Savage Moose. And here in Bellevue, it is Off the Rails. Those are the 2 names. And then prior to that, he had one in Snohomish that was called, oh man, I can't remember it. But rent in Kenmore, which is Seattle-ish to the north, it is a third of what the rent is here in Bellevue, a third. So triple the rent here in Bellevue, but you don't have break-ins like you do in Seattle. You've got different people walking around, and Bellevue police actually go after people, and our judges here in Bellevue, they actually put people in jail. When Black Lives Matter came through here and basically had a free-for-all at Bellevue Square, Bellevue police worked for like 3 years finding and prosecuting 130 of those criminals from Black Lives Matter and Antifa, putting them in jail. This is not land of shenanigans here. It's like the way things are supposed to be. But in order to get that, as a business owner, you're gonna have to cough out on the rent. And a lot of these businesses don't have that margin to do that. And so that's why you see them on a nicer street in Ballard trying to make a go of that. Also, you've got business dynamics that in Seattle, you've got more population there, more population that can walk around, maybe get some walk-in traffic. Here in Bellevue, besides from Bellevue Square, you don't really have that. And maybe Main Street, you just don't have that. Wildly different market. So it's easy to say, well, just go over to Bellevue and put your store there. Easier said than done. Like the one guy said, you know, it's either I make a go of it here or I go bankrupt. Humphrey and Byrne indicated that they do not intend to leave Seattle, but pleaded, yeah, okay, make this your number 1 priority. A lot is going on in the city, but small businesses are the backbone of your community. The problem is that a city like Seattle, and yeah, they go on to say, help us fix this now. The problem is Seattle has allowed so much to happen that Seattle has got all of these different issues that hammer these officials all the time. You got the homeless people lighting stuff on fire. You've got people taking each other out. You've got shootings, the number of rounds being shot at each individual people, just going crazy. I mean, you've got the homeless thing. You've got all kinds of different, you got graffiti. You've got all of these bad things happening in society, and the government officials, they can't even figure out which way is up. All right, let's attack this one. So, and on that, let's read this story. So this story here is Seattle Police Department and Fire Department deliver sobering statistics to Seattle City Council. Okay, we're going to skip down here. All right, Sarah Nelson. I've talked about Sarah Nelson because she is Fremont Brewing in Ballard in Seattle. I showed a picture of, or a video of the side of her business during that walkthrough when we were talking about, walkthrough of Ballard, when we were talking about the targets leaving Seattle. So if you want to look at that, you can see, you know, Sarah Nelson, Fremont Brewing. She is her second term. She has also been recently elected the Seattle City Council president, and she is reasonable. She's a very reasonable human being. When we had the old council, she was like the parent talking to a group of children, because we had a bunch of socialists that were just whacked out of their minds and not dealing with reality. So Sarah Nelson is saying it's still not happening fast enough, trying to get more cops. She went on to point that the city had a whole plan for recruitment and retention. She wasn't interested in hearing why it simply wasn't working. And so when we see these numbers, there's a tendency to say, well, that's just not working, Nelson said. And I don't like hearing that, because she's a real proponent of, we need some more cops up in here to make this better. And then people pivot to, will every city having a hard time hiring officers, and look at the West Coast? Well, because a lot of people say West Coast has become trash. And if you look at the problems Seattle has, Portland has, San Francisco has, LA has, pick any big West Coast city, and you're probably not that not accurate, right? Well, I don't really care what's happening in other cities because I represent Seattle. In a lengthy response, Diaz brought up a variety of topics. At the end of the day, here's the bottom line. At the end of the day, we're all vying for the same applicants, and nobody wants to be a cop. Period. Doesn't matter where it is. Like, oh, sign up for cop? Oh yeah, that's me. I want to have the same challenges that the police officers face during the summer of love. That's where I want to be. Nah, they just want to kick some Antifa ass. If they were honest, yeah, I want to drop the hammer on some Antifa knucklehead doing shenanigans. I think, you know, if they were really honest about why you want to become a cop, yeah, bring it. Diaz responded by bringing up several points, including making sure that all of our executive command staff is engaging, talking about how to make things better for cops coming in. That's just a bunch of executive nonsense from the police level. During the meeting, both Diaz and Seattle Fire Department Chief Harold Scoggins delivered stark reminders that the issues of crime, homicide, and homelessness haven't changed much, but there was some good news in the reports. All right, overall crime in Seattle has decreased by 9%. Has it? Because it doesn't feel like it. I think that is where your criminal numbers are just not being reported. Total violence decreased 6%, but gun violence, both fatal and non-fatal, went up by 3%. That doesn't surprise me at all. An increase of 23% in homicides. People just shooting and killing each other. They know that the police don't have, number one, this is their response. I don't like what you said. I'm going to shoot you. If I kill you, well, so be it. And number two, the odds of them getting busted and arrested and actually doing some hard time are slim. This is Seattle. It's not what we're doing, because that might be racist. Can't have that. Yes, and we've got, number of officers has dipped from 1,047, where we're at now. That's down from 1,424. But the actual deployable police officers, what is that? Somewhere around 800? Seattle Police, let me know. If you're a cop and you know those actual numbers, let me know. Is it in the 800s? I mean, it's still horrifically low. And that's because the department saw a net loss of 36 officers in 2023, despite all of this trying to get more cops in here and all of this recruiting and campaigns and whatnot. You still lost 36 between 2022 and 2023. And I think that's about the same number as down in Portland. You bring in these big classes, but you've still got a lot of outgoing because nobody wants to be a cop. And who wants to be a cop when, your officials and everybody around you and the community just takes an entire crap on you and says, defund the police. You are feeling the impacts of that. That's what you're still feeling. So till you can overcome that, don't expect much of a difference. Until you can convince the community you are actually prosecuting and putting some people in jail and taking the bad man off the street, why would you want to become a cop? Give the cops back the tools that they need. Allow cops to chase people when they know they've done some kind of crime. Can't even chase them. You're just like, yeah, it might be dangerous. Got to let them go. See ya. And some 12 and 13-year-old that's carjacked a car last Friday, take off into the sunset. 12 and 13-year-old armed carjackers. 12 and 13-year-old armed carjackers. What were you doing when you were 12? You know what I mean? You probably weren't thinking about jacking a car, were you? Maybe boosting some candy from the local grocery store. Maybe boosting some porno because they used to have magazines. Oh, get your hands on that. Sell that for a pretty penny, right? You weren't thinking about jacking a car with a gun. But that's what we're doing now. Because the people in the gangs that are older than them know that if they get young kids involved, they're not going to do any time. Because here in King County, we're about to close basically the juvenile detention program and just have these criminals, these teenage criminals, just live in the community with other people showing them how to go. Sure, that'll work out fine. That's, we got some really genius concepts here in King County because people are liberal and that's the direction they go. 4 years ago, we had roughly 2,500. Now we're talking about rounds being fired in the city. Chief Diaz made a point to highlight a huge increase in the number of rounds being fired in the city. 4 years ago, we had roughly 2,500. Last year, we had over 5,700 rounds. That's more than double, he told council members. Let's see, 2,500, double, 5, yeah. One reason for the increase is an illegal conversion of a handgun and the illegal use of high-capacity magazines. Our officers are recovering what are called Glock switches, which take guns and make them automatic, meaning pull the trigger and boop, 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 automatic, instead of boop, 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 or as fast as you can pull the trigger. Just hold it down, boom. And we are seeing 50-round drum magazines. It looks like a Tommy gun. Tommy gun was that machine gun with the round magazine out in front and always had, the gangster, right? The original gangster, the original Machine Gun Kelly. Kids don't know that that's, a real life criminal. And you got Machine Gun Kelly dating, who was it? Megan, somebody. Who knows? Who cares? It looks like a Tommy gun, which we're seeing some of the mass shootings that we've had. Yeah, mass shootings. So then the fire department, he talks about the fire situation and handling 200,000 phone calls per year just in general. And some of what the fire department is seeing is just, you got a rise in population, you're going to have some more crazy fires, some more crazy calls. But then he talked about the number of fires responding. Opioid-only overdose emergencies jumped a whopping 50% between 2022 and 2023. My son died February of 2023, and he was not lumped in with the fentanyl because the medical examiner couldn't give us a legit cause of death. My son's death says natural causes, which means he wasn't murdered and he didn't commit suicide. They weren't able to tell us from a medical standpoint what exactly killed him. Well, he had a bunch of street Xanax on him. He just recently purchased. By a bunch, we think 50 or 75. We bought a batch so you get the discount. And he took one he took a Xanax bar that was laced with enough fentanyl, which is only 2 milligrams, and it put him down. How many other kids are out there with that thing that's happened? You got a perfectly healthy 27-year-old kid who didn't die. They ruled out heart attack and they ruled out stroke. So it wasn't some kind of heart deal. At 27, what's that leave you with? And the first medical examiner that I met over at my son's apartment when we went there which was February 19th, 2023. He said, yeah, this was definitely an overdose, but he said it was a medical overdose. I'm like, okay, all the signs were there. So that's why, what else would have killed my son? There was no other. It's what we're doing. So how many other overdoses are there out there that aren't being reflected in these numbers? Because opioid-only overdoses surged by 50%. They went up 50%. What are they going to be in 2024? Probably more. And the current administration tells us, well, the border is mostly closed. And over the last 3 years, they've been telling us, oh, it's closed. But then all of a sudden, you've got executive action needing to be taken because the border is clearly not closed. They're just streaming across there in record numbers, along with human trafficking and massive amounts of fentanyl flooding into the United States. Yeah, crazy stuff, right? So they were talking about the drugs combining overdoses. Scoggins replied by saying it could be a combination, could be methamphetamine, could be meth, could be heroin, fentanyl, and oftentimes it's an intersection of multiple things because drugs now, like the drugs that killed my son, which he took, he wasn't smoking the blues. He was at one time, but he'd gone through rehab to do that, to get off of those. 2019. In 2023, he took a street Xanax, meaning he bought it from somebody, and he just wanted to chill out, really sad about his girlfriend, and never woke up. And, days later, horrible. That happened exactly a year ago. So a lot of these storylines, do I blame the open southern border? No. Could I? Sure. Do I think that my son might still be alive if we didn't have a wide open southern border? Yeah. Odds are. I mean, statistically speaking, maybe my son would be alive, but that's a lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I can't really focus on that. You could say, hey, my son had the choice to take what he knew was a pill that could be laced. But in February of last year, we were just on the cusp of that really being a storyline of not recognizing that it's laced. So many different things were laced with fentanyl. Like we were understanding, oh, now cocaine is laced with fentanyl. Now Xanax bars are laced. Anything, marijuana can be laced because it accentuates and makes the high longer and it's super cheap. So why wouldn't you put that in a Xanax bar? It's basic good business on the behalf of the Chinese, folks that are shipping all these chemicals. And then, you got the Mexican cartels whipping them up and then bringing them across the southern border with all of these migrants that are coming through. Hey, it's going to be $4,000 to get you across into the U.S. You're going to give us $1,000. We're going to carry the balance for $3,000. We're going to need you to transport some goods into the country. Okay. Because these people want a better life. They're willing to do whatever. And they're seeing literally millions of people come into the U.S. doing the same thing. But, then you've got the females oftentimes are human trafficked. You got sex trafficking in there, all this crazy stuff that all works together. And you don't have enough cops, the basis of this story. You don't have enough cops to basically handle what is out there. And then you don't have the judges to do their thing and actually incarcerate people. So why would any of this stuff change much better in the immediate future? It's going to take a long time. And that's if there's the will of the people to make that happen. And I don't really see that happening. We'll see, right? We'll see in the 2024 elections. We'll see if there's been much of a change. But like oftentimes so many of you say, keep voting blue. We'll just see how that works out. Keep voting blue and the shenanigans that it entails. We'll just see how that goes. Because we saw it just recently here in Chicago. They had the option to vote somebody else in. Instead, they went with Let's Go Brandon Johnson. That is working out swimmingly, isn't it? That guy can't work his way out of a paper bag. All right. So I think this article would talk about some homeless fires. That seems to be going out because somebody's doing something with the homeless community and the whole thing. When you talk about derelict fires, when that's a big issue in your city, okay, homelessness wildly out of control. So maybe work on that, but then you got to, deal with the whole drug thing, and then you got to deal with the criminal element. Yeah, it's crazy. So these businesses that are hoping that somebody recognizes and does something, Wishful thinking, folks. Honestly, wishful thinking. Can't run a business based on that. So where do you go from there? You got to make a decision, and maybe you leave that area of town that is your business has been broken into many times. You figure out a way to make it work elsewhere. That's the only real option you have, because the other option is to continue to stay there and expect something to be different. And we know what that is literally the definition of. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for being here on this episode. I'm doing another one right after here, so don't leave. But love to have you like this video, subscribe if you haven't, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Okay, so now I got to remember to go to my single screen there, and then I can see what you guys are up to going on here. It's absolutely not your son's fault. Julie, I understand the sentiment, but what if he made a decision to not do that type of drugs? You know, that's the struggle, right? That is the struggle. Samantha, shenanigans count 11. I just said shenanigans. How about that? Yeah, no, I hear you, Julie, though. As a parent, you try and teach your kids to do the right thing. And then when something like this happens, you kind of look at your parenting and go, that went wildly sideways. When you're going to outlive your son by, say, I live another 37 years or 30 years, I make it to 85. Outlive my kid by 30 something years. It's just horrible. So you kind of go through that. All right. So no, and I don't blame my son. I think he literally took a pill that he thought was 100% fine, and it killed him. And so that's horrible. And my son had no intention of killing him. None. And there was no signs, just none. So, it's horrible, and I miss him dearly. And it's just one of those things where you got to chalk it up to, good Lord, wrong place at the wrong time from the wrong dealer. So that's why I kind of say to people, I don't blame the southern border. I don't blame the drug dealers, because everybody's got their own choices to make. But if things were different, if we didn't live in Seattle, and I told my son not to go over and live in Seattle, all those, so many regrets. But, his girlfriend wanted to live there, and she wanted the Queen Anne experience. And for a lot of people, they have a great Queen Anne experience. That's the hill up on top of the Space Needle and all that stuff. It overlooks everywhere, and it's epic scenery. But you've also got a lot of criminal activity going on. And so, yeah, I understand what you're saying, not my son's fault. But, right? So you're being brainwashed. You're not at fault. Yeah. And I don't really blame myself, but you're still left at the end of the day. You had 2 sons and now you're down to 1. What in the F happened? That's kind of the real, what happened? And my son Kieran and I talk about that fairly often. What happened to Brennan? What happened? Just all of a sudden, so I've been trying to really focus on the positives. And one thing I would tell you guys is that, and gals, let's not be sexist. I always say guys, because that's, vernacular. Take as many videos of your loved ones as you can, even if you think you're never going to use them. Take as many pictures as you can, even if your kid just absolutely does this to you and says, I don't want my picture taken, do it anyway, because you will never regret the footage that you have. You will only regret the footage and photos that you don't take. Remember that one time my parents came to visit me and I didn't take any pictures? Gosh darn it. I was so living in the moment. There is something to be said for that. But there's also something to be said for being able to look at past footage and go, oh man, really miss that guy. Okay. So there's that. We're going to move on to a third topic here. We've got the Texas governor. He is announcing he's going to build an 80-acre base in Eagle Pass. He's building his own army. He is literally building a compound in a war zone known as Operation Lone Star for 1,800 National Guards. That's what we're going to get into. All right, we're going to do the intro here, and then we're going to talk about it. Texas governor announces plans to build an 80-acre base in Eagle Pass, Texas, for up to 1,800 National Guard troops. What is Greg Abbott doing? Is he building his own army? Is it going to be civil war? Some think so. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right. We're going to watch a little video time. McGruff. Remember, was it Officer McGruff? I was reading somebody's comment on Nancy Reagan. Officer McGruff. So great. The dog. Don't do drugs. It's true. Don't do drugs. All right. Here we go. We're going to do this. We're going to go here. We're starting to dominate this, right?
Contentious feud between the state of Texas and the Biden administration over federal immigration policy and how things should be handled at the border. The base will house up to 1,800 Texas National Guard members, but it could expand to 2,300 if there is a surge of migrants. Now, the governor is calling it a military base to amass a large army in a very strategic area. But it's also an 80-acre base that appears to be in direct defiance of federal border control. Now, according to Abbott, the base will help them consolidate, and it will give them that flexibility and that speed.
Building a base isn't in defiance of the court order. The court order was you need to allow the feds to come in and not do their job by snipping the wire, and you need to allow them access to not do their job by them coming in. And then they basically just babysit the illegal immigrants across the Rio Grande River and then hold their hands into a van, and then they get taken to a migrant center. That's what the feds were doing. That's not what Abbott is doing with the Texas National Guard. He's basically having the Texas National Guard send them back across the river, say, you got to stay home. You can't come here. That's illegal.
Because of its proximity to the border. He also highlighted the ability it will give them to expand razor wire in the area, something that has already been a huge point of contention between the two sides. Here is what Governor Abbott said.
Our goal is to make sure that we expand the effectiveness of that razor wire to more areas along this border. Having the soldiers located right here, right by the river, they're going to have the ability to more quickly be able to construct that razor wire barrier. And this will reduce the travel time and costs of current living conditions.
Now, last year, Texas officials sued the Biden administration for cutting razor wire at the border. But last month, the Supreme Court ruled that Border Patrol agents could remove that razor wire while the state's legal challenge plays out. And it's not just the razor wire and Border Patrol's access to the border that is playing out in court. The legality of Texas's decision to implement a series of buoys on its river border with Mexico is still in question. An appeals court is set to reconsider an earlier court's ruling declaring the barriers illegal. And Abbott continues to send migrants from the border to Democrat-controlled cities across the U.S., which of course has been at the center of this showdown between the state of Texas and the federal government. The administration has said that this is a federal issue, but Abbott is showing with this latest announcement of a new base that he really just is not backing down.
Won't back down. Ooh, Greg Abbott is just so why is this a big deal? What you've got going on is so last Thursday there was court hearing. And the judge basically came out and said, "Yep, I'm going to issue my directives soon." So what is that? Probably, I would guess sometime later this week. I'm totally guessing, but the state of Texas basically said, "Hey, we're not giving up. We're going to appeal." So every decision that's been made by the Biden administration, all right, we're going to sue you because we need to let these people come into the country illegally because, you know what I mean? And so that's literally what border and or the Customs and Border Protection, the feds, are doing, letting people come in by the millions, literally walking them across the Rio Grande. Now, when they get to the eastern side, which is the U.S. side, they hold their hands. And so it would be such a horrifically bad look for the border protection to literally go in there and snip wire right now and help these illegals through. That would be such a bad optics that they're not doing that. They have the right to, per this most current court ruling, but that is under appeal. So we'll see what happens. You've got basically the state trying to secure its border, which is also a federal border. So it's state versus federal. And in this case, I don't think Let's Go Brandon has a chance, because when you start to look at the numbers of people that he's allowed into this country illegally, it's absolutely mind-blowing. And specifically into this area, there's a lot of questions. Well, why is he doing it at Eagle Pass? Eagle Pass it's on the southern border. Eagle Pass had, it's a town of 28,000. It had 22,000 illegals come through, rush that area the week before Christmas. I mean, some days you just had, 4, 5, 6,000 just coming through. That is literally an invasion. Some people are saying, mostly folks in the far left, that's not an invasion. But what would you call it when your town of 28,000, literally in a week, has 22,000 people come through and get put on buses at migrant centers? I mean, that's why they were holding them in these enormous fields at Shelby Park. So the governor he's building a huge complex to not only house his folks, because National Guard doesn't have a center there. They're floating, right? They're floating. And so they need a place of operations. This is the governor of Texas basically putting his foot down and saying, no, we're not these shenanigans anymore at all. Here's what we're doing. Now, some folks might say, well, you're just only taking care of that one little spot on the border. It's more than that. It is, we are here. We know that the border is enormous. It's 1,254 miles just across Texas is the southern border with Mexico, 1,254 miles. So can you put razor wire up against all that? Can you maintain it? No. But you can do that on the worst sections. And Shelby Park, Eagle Pass, that's what he's doing. Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Friday announced plans to build an 80-acre base to house up to 1,800, which might have the ability to house 2,300 Texas National Guard members near Eagle Pass. The border city at the center of a contentious feud between the state and Biden administration over federal immigration policy. Before now, the Texas National Guard has been scattered across the entire region in cramped quarters, away from fellow soldiers and sometimes traveling long distances to do their job, Abbott said during a news conference, while flanked by a banner that read, "Future home of the Texas Military Department, forward operating base." Forward operating base. Guy's going to war. Guy is in war. Operation Lone Star. I was walking, just a few weeks ago on the bridge that goes between Mexico and the U.S. I live streamed that. And, it's so just bizarre. As you head into Mexico, you're going west, right? You're going to cross over the Rio Grande. And you see Operation Lone Star, which is just a bunch of military equipment and literally razor wire, all kinds of stuff. You've got the tent with the big setup. You got a 32 by 36 tent. You got a 20 by 22 tent, all set up with all kinds of generators and all kinds of stuff, because this is a military operation. And then on the eastern side of the bridge, heading into the U.S., you look off to your right, and you got a golf course with people playing golf. You're like, oh, hey, 4, that kind of thing going on. It's so bizarre. You've literally got Operation Lone Star in the middle of a city-owned park in Texas. You got a military operation going on. This will go down in history. I mean, this will be like, the Battle of Shelby Park. Before now, okay, we already read about that. The base camp, which Abbott said would dramatically improve conditions for soldiers, will have the ability to expand to incorporate up to 2,300 personnel, the governor said. Abbott, who was accompanied by the state's border czar, Mike Banks, and Texas Military Department Major General Thomas Susler, said the cost of base construction would be minimal. All right, it is Texas. I tend to believe him. If this were Seattle, I'd say, wait a minute, what does minimal mean? How many millions of dollars are we going to have to fork out here and not have anything work? He cited savings from the housing guard members from Operation Lone Star at the base rather than hotel rooms. That's where they've been, hotel rooms, where many guard members are currently housed. The cost, I'm sure they're looking forward to going to their own base, right? I mean, it won't be nearly as nice as like a Holiday Inn, will it? No, it won't be as nice, but it'll be them. They'll be on site. They won't have to travel. But there won't be any lot lizards either, will there? No, these are military guys. They don't go down that road. That's only truckers for Trump. The cost for the construction of the new base was not given during the news conference. The camp is set to feature a dining facility, a recreation center, laundry facilities, individual rooms for troops and healthcare facilities, a statement, and Wi-Fi. There's going to be Wi-Fi everywhere. Yeah, you kind of got to have that in today's war, right? Wi-Fi for everyone. The Republican governor of Texas has been at odds with President Joe Biden. Who isn't, besides his cronies and a bunch of losers? So bad, so bad. In 2021, Abbott announced the launch of Operation Lone Star, the nation's independent border security initiative. Okay, and so then we've had, here we go. This is some of what I wanted to point out. So here is the spin, and this is why Shelby Park with people drowning. Last week, I think it was about a week ago, Abbott made the point that, you know what, that bridge going over from Mexico into the U.S., nobody's ever drowned on that bridge. It was like one of those, let me fact check that real quick. Is that true? And it is. It's absolutely true. Nobody has drowned on that bridge. Texas's failure, this is what somebody from the Department of Homeland Security, Texas's failure to provide access to the border persists, even in instances of imminent danger to life and safety. That was a complete lie, because there was no imminent danger to life and safety, because those people had already drowned by the time Texas National Guard was notified by an hour. This is a letter from Department of Homeland Security General Counsel Jonathan Meyer after the migrant deaths. Texas has demonstrated that even in the most exigent circumstances, no, not true, 100% incorrect, but this is the false narrative they want you to get out. It will not allow Border Patrol access to the border to conduct law enforcement and emergency response activities. Well, that's because they've got it covered. And what were you guys doing when you allowed 302,034 illegals across the southern border in December? Was that in conducting law enforcement? I mean, what were you doing? I mean, what were you doing? That's my contention. If you weren't doing your job, get out and let somebody else who wants to do the job run the show. That's reasonable. Reasonable. Last year, Texas officials sued the Biden administration for cutting razor wire at the border. That razor wire. No, you can't do it. We're going to do it. Go F yourself. We're building a fort. So crazy, right? The Supreme Court ruled in 5-4 vote last month that Border Patrol agents could remove the razor wire. So why don't they? Because it's such a terrible. Why would you be removing the razor wire? Well, because you want to help the illegals get in. Oh, Now you might say, well, we don't want them to get all caught up in the wire. All right, they can get to the shore well enough and not get stuck in the wire. I have seen it with my own eyes. If you guys want to look back at footage, you can get on the shore, but you can't get much up the shore. And that's how the razor wire is set up. The floating barricades, you're not supposed to be swimming across the river. You're supposed to go through a, secure checkpoint because that's how borders work. So, no, it's a really big thing and it's floating and you guys need to take that down. Well, the federal government, let's go Brandon Johnson, if he takes that down, what does that signal? And that is at the crux of what's going on right now. So even in spite of the Texas National Guard having the ability, or border protection, the federal border protection, Customs and Border Protection, having the ability to go in and snip that wire, they're not going to do it because then, everybody in the right would say, this is what we're talking about. Do we need any more prime examples of this? Crazy situation. When the federal government is simply not doing their job. They're doing the opposite of that, which is they're allowing human trafficking and the trafficking of pills and just letting, shenanigans be had and willy-nilly thousands and millions of people to just stream across the border. Should work out, should be fine. We haven't had that many stories of, criminal activity by said illegals, have we? Oh, we're starting to hear more and more of those, aren't we? Yeah. And just based on numbers, based on math, you think we're going to see more or less as time goes on? The Department of Homeland Security has demanded Texas give it full access to the border, arguing immigration enforcement is a federal matter. Abbott and other Texas officials have vowed not to back down. Now, Customs and Border Protection has access to get their boats into the boat launch at Shelby Park. You'll see that. If anybody's down there live streaming, you'll see that. In the morning, they bring their boats in. They do their exercises. In the afternoon, they take their boats out. Because boats don't run on the river at night because it's dangerous, right? It's kind of like on lakes where you have jet skis and paddle boards and whatnot. They tend to oftentimes have a curfew of dark because, running over somebody on a paddle board with a big boat, it's going to kill them. So same thing, just you're going to have more issues if you run things at night. So no, the Customs and Border Protection, they have the right to go into Shelby Park. They just can't poke around and let illegals come through illegally. Huh. Weird. They can come through and they can clip some wire per the court order right now. But could you imagine that? There'd be like a dozen photographers right there just going, what are you doing? Just clipping some wire, helping some folks in. Why are you doing that? Yeah. Whole thing is just upside down, isn't it? Texas would not be able to respond to President Biden's border crisis without the brave men and women of the Texas National Guard. And it's essential to build this base camp for them, Abbott said on Friday. I think it's great. I mean, if you're going to treat it, if you're going to state that it's an invasion, it's all in this one. If you're going to state that it's an invasion, then you're at war. And if you're at war, you need that forward operating compound, right? I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, just with the sheer numbers of alone that have come through. If you're an American and if you think that just letting people come into your country willy-nilly is a good idea, then I say you should probably house some at your house and just see how that works out. I'm not saying they're all bad people, but don't you kind of want to know who's coming to your house? You want a little bit of vetting to be done? I do. And I think most reasonable people do too. You get these knuckleheads that are just like, let them all stay in my house. Who was it? The governor of Massachusetts? What is wrong with Massachusetts, by the way? What happened? Why did things, it's kind of like Denver. What happened? Where did you get, or Austin is happening. What happened? Where did all this come from? And just this ridiculousness and these decisions that are being made that are stupid. And then you've got guys like Greg Abbott, just sitting in his wheelchair and just telling you the most stark, basic things as to why he's doing. And when I watch him talk, I just think this makes sense. There's nothing in it that doesn't make sense if you truly understand the scenario. So building a forward military operation where the National Guard, up to 2,300 of them, this is for a future siege that they're anticipating. And based on prior numbers, and based on what we know about the cartel, are they going to stop anytime soon? No. But I think they're also going to have recognized, all right, this guy is not messing around at Eagle Pass. What is up this guy's butt? I mean, he's stopped all of our people from coming through. Nobody wants to go through Texas. Now you're cutting into our profits because we got to move people up through the Arizona and the California border areas. I mean, man, this guy's just a pain in our ass. The cartel is saying that right now because their numbers are down. The numbers of illegals coming through in January versus December, way down. Historically, they're still up. But the next few months, we will, time will tell. And I think what Abbott is doing is he is putting all that pressure onto those other areas. And one of them that I'm concerned about is West Coast, Best Coast, which we all know isn't true. But, rappers want to say that. And so, I mean, you're going to believe everything a rapper says, right? Because, the way they talk about women, it's mostly wholesome, isn't it? I mean, for the most part. No, Greg Abbott is dropping the hammer, and I think the cartel will react. and they'll send folks up California. They'll come through San Diego. And then where are they going to go? Are they going to do this weird route? Let's go back to Chicago. No, they're going to go right into San Diego. They're going to go right into LA. They're going to go right into San Francisco. They're going to go right into Portland. They're going to go right into Seattle. And from Arizona, from the Tucson sector, they're going to go right into Denver. Denver, I know you guys are already hosed. Yeah, batten down those hatches, right? Because things are about to get spicy. All right, that's about it for me on this one. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for supporting, and love to have you a subscriber. Hit the like button for this video. Hit the notification bell. We drop 2 videos a day. Check that out. Thanks for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now. And you folks on the live stream, we're going to chat for a little bit. See what you guys are up to. I go from looking at this screen and then I look at my iPad and it's kind of hard to see. You only count 3 for that one. Okay. Yeah, the well-dressed and they have suitcases. You guys are talking about that, watching Wolf and Scorch. Suitcases. That is a problem for me because that means they flew the whole damn route. Nobody hauls a suitcase over the Darien Gap, do they? So you've got people coming in with money. Even if they still say it's $14K for somebody from China. And they're flying into, they've got the money for the airfare into Quito in Ecuador. What do you got going on there? I mean, that whole thing is just, what's happening there? That's something I'm definitely watching. It's like, what is happening and what's going on? Yeah, you know what? Trump forever. Let's go, Brandon. All right. I'm going to cap this. I need to get some lunch. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for being here. And I will catch up with you on the next live stream. Last Friday, I didn't do a live stream because things sometimes come up and I got to do other stuff. But if I'm available, I will live stream this stuff because it's fun and I appreciate you guys being here. So thanks for being here. I will catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now. Let's see.